As soon as the live come on, you can introduce the show.
Good evening. This is Getting to Know America. I'm Shantae McLaughlin. Sharika.
Hello, and I'm Sharika Dash.
Tanisha.
I'm Tanisha.
And tonight our guest is independent candidate for Senate for Georgia 2020, Al Bartell. Al, would you like to say something about yourself?
Sure, I'm glad to be here. It is absolutely exciting that the media management group that y'all have created is willing to make public policy available to the urban, suburban, and rural communities of Georgia. As a 30-year consultant for urban, suburban, and rural communities, it is time that we get clear that the backbone of America is urban, suburban, and rural communities, not corporations, not high-end institutions, so that everyday people can have an opportunity to have access to government to the same degree as lobbyists, special interest groups, and corporations. As a 30-year consultant, that has been my forte as a way of life and a profession to usher in public engagement to urban, suburban, and rural communities. And I am excited about being able to answer questions and put that conversation on display for tonight's conversation.
Thank you very much, Al Bartell. So, tonight we're going to talk about politics and the impact on voting and protesting. So, currently, we're all here in Georgia. And in Georgia, it's been very heated and very controversial the last couple of nights because Georgia usually isn't impacted too much by the riots and rioting. And our mayor here in Atlanta has said that we can impact the rioting by going out to vote. Candidate Bartell, could you please give your input on that statement?
Well, the mayor was visibly upset about the amount of violence and window smashing. And she was also upset that her communication was not able to land with the demonstrators. And what it puts on display is how out of touch the establishment stakeholders are to the new emerging people in Georgia, and specifically the city of Atlanta last night. So those of us who are leaders who are used to and comfortable with being able to deliver a communication with a historical perspective. Atlanta does have a historical perspective of peaceful demonstrations, but that time is in the past. This is a new era, a new commitment, and a new people. And it's absolutely time that the people who have gotten used to and comfortable with government and leadership begin to address the new activists of the 21st century. And so we now have new activists in the 21st century, particularly in Georgia and in the city of Atlanta. And our mayor and other leaders of the establishment are going to have to deal with the new emerging activists here in the dawn of the 21st century.
Tanisha, I know that you had a couple of questions for candidate Bartell. Would you mind asking those now?
Yeah, I understand what he is saying. I think I'm more concerned as a Black mother, and I'd like to know. I understand that you are running for senator.
Yes, United States Senator. There are two United States Senators for each state. And it's interesting that in Georgia, not only do we have the regular United States Senator election on November 3rd of this year, but we also have a special election for United States Senator this year. And I'm running in the special election.
Okay, so my question to you is, and I'm pretty sure that everybody has this question. If you are voted in for senator, you know, what are you willing to do, to help change these laws that are in place that are causing, our people to go out here and riot? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, the only reason why people are rioting right now is because they don't know anything else to do. People who have been put in positions to change the law and advocate for us have not in the past. So this has been the last resort.
Well, your point is accurate. This is a last resort. It's because people don't know what else to do. Now, it's not the fault of the people that they don't know what else to do. It's the fault of the leadership. So leadership has gotten comfortable. In most of the urban cities, we have people who are African American who are mayors, city councils, directors of departments who are running these cities. So no more can we pull something off the shelf from the old school called blaming the white folks. And the reason that you're pointing to that our people are rioting in the street is because they're frustrated and they don't know what else to do. It's not their fault that they don't know what else to do. It's the fault of those of us who have gotten comfortable and have not taken the time to build the capacity of neighborhood leaders, to understand what neighborhood leadership is all about. We've not taken the time to build the capacity of community leaders, to understand what community leadership is all about. We've not taken the time to build the capacity of faith leaders to understand what real faith leadership is all about. And we've not taken the time to build the capacity of small business leaders. And so we must now go back to the drawing board, stop the pretense, stop the getting in front of the camera, and teach our young people what it is to understand the system and benefit from the system and turn the situation around, because right now they are clear that the system and the establishment is the enemy.
Well, I hear that, but I mean, to be honest with you, it feels like it is. It feels like the system is the enemy because when our children can't go out here and walk to the store or jog through a neighborhood without being murdered in cold blood and not having any justice for that, would you think the system is fair for that? You think that we should stand with the system that's killing us?
Now, your assessment is accurate. The system is the enemy, and the actions are going to be violent until the system begins to treat us as equal people, regardless of race or color or creed. So it's no surprise that the acts of violence have occurred. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. It is long overdue. I'm not condoning violence, but I'm aware of the violence. I'm aware of why it has happened. And so now activists who are upset and mad, they are justified in being upset and mad because the system is the enemy. Anytime we can have black men being shot over and over again and murdered, and juries and prosecutors cannot have a conviction, but we have to go through a civil law rather than a criminal law, that is an indication that the system is the enemy. And so now that this reaction has occurred to say, we will not go quietly in the night, we will not sit back and take it anymore. Everybody has to come to the table and treat these activists with fairness, admit that the system has been unfair, and put policies in place to hold people in systems accountable for the injustices in America.
Well, Sharika, did you want to say something?
Okay. My thing is, I understand that they want us to. There are several people that are mad about the riots. They have their opinions, and we don't necessarily knock nobody's opinion on how you feel. But there's been a long time of protesting. There's been a long time of march. We see no changes. I think it's time for action, and I don't necessarily say the action of rioting was the action that needed, but an action that was going to get a reaction needs to happen. A reaction of change. I just talked to my daughter because I talk to my kids a lot about what's going on. I had one of my daughters to tell me it was only 27 days in 2019 that a black person wasn't killed. um when you got kids that feel like they need to look up statistics like that, I think that's a problem. And I think that that's when it's time, because now that's almost as if you feeling like these kids are living in fear because these are the things that they feel they have to know about. When I was my daughter's age, that was the last thing I was studying, how many black people are getting killed, because it was almost safe for us to walk down the street. We almost could live in the house with our doors open. So to hear that the same laws that's supposed to protect us, the same society and land and country that my father has fought for, is the same country that his grandkids might can't walk down the street without being killed. I think that's kind of ridiculous. And I hear that they don't want the rights, but what do they think we should do as a people? And then the thing is, I get confused about, nobody is really telling us, okay, this is who should be responsible for this. We need to understand what each politician does so we can understand exactly who is failing us.
I agree.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Tanisha.
No, I was saying I absolutely agree. With Sharika's remark, because in my mind I'm hearing people say acts of violence, and to be honest with you, during this protesting started out as a peaceful protest. There were other things that happened that caused it not to be as peaceful, but I can't say that they were acts of violence. I don't think that acts of violence were brought into the picture until the police showed up, honestly, because I mean, is vandalism classified as violent?
There are
Because I
some
mean
people
that's
who, there are some people who classify vandalism as violence, but your point is the acts of violence begins to occur when the police showed up,
absolutely.
and we do not trust the police. So it's time for us to have members of city council and mayors of cities to get clear. We don't trust the police. It's time for us to have county commissioners and state representatives get clear. We don't trust the police. It's time to have U.S. congressmen and women and U.S. senators get clear. We do not trust the police. And until that trust gets to be restored, there's going to be physical violence, mental violence, emotional violence, and property violence.
I agree because I'm gonna tell you, it bothered me to see the city of Atlanta vandalized last night, and this morning when I woke up, my thoughts were, it kind of didn't bother me, to be honest with you. And I feel bad about the businesses that were impacted because of the situation, but at the same time, I'm saying to myself, if we were violent people as they say we are, then we would attack the families of those who attacked our family, and that's not what happened. Because I mean, some people believe in blood for blood. So if we were just those kind of people, we didn't do that. We didn't go after the officer's family and attack their families, or do anything to make them uncomfortable. All we asked for was justice for the crimes that they committed. So
There,
go ahead.
there are those of us like yourself who have been requesting that the dominant culture in America address race disparities for decades. Those requests have fallen on deaf ears. They say to us, y'all are oversensitive. Y'all complain too much. Y'all use the color of your skin as an excuse to hustle the system. Y'all use the color of your skin to point out things that are unequal, and we, the dominant race, don't think that that's the case. So our communication has been a peaceful communication year after year after year after year after year. And the dominant population, being the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, one party takes us for granted and the other party just simply takes us. And so we have been telling people there will come a day of reckoning when the empty words and empty promises will no longer suffice. And that day has now come.
This is Shantae. I'd like to chime in on a few things. Like, with you running for Senate and with Mayor Bottoms advocating for us to make our voices heard, and returning to this voting conversation, how can we even count on our votes counting when we're in, don't worry, we'll edit, when we're in a state in which we know that Governor Kemp pretty much stole the election from Stacey Abrams? And I just want to read a quote. Gregory, stop it. I just want to read a quote that came from our president, the president that was elected into office by the American people, or whoever represented the American people, which is a whole nother story, but Donald Trump, off of his Twitter. So on May 29th at 12:53 p.m., he said, quote, "These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty and we will assume control. But when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you." End quote. But then May 1st, just 28 days earlier, regarding the protesting around the reopening of the state, he said, this is white people protesting about not being able to get to the hair and nail salons. He said, quote, "The governor of Michigan should give a little and put out the fire. These are very good people, but they are angry. They want their lives back again safely. See them, talk to them, make a deal." So if we live, end quote. So if we live in a society in which a white person wanting their hair and nails done matters more than a black person being murdered on the streets by a white officer, what makes us want to go out and vote? This is who is the head of our country. We know of these. I mean, it's one thing to be on a local level of one or two officers, but this is who is running our country. So you running for Senate, how can you make a difference when it comes to the people that are running our country and how it's impacting us not having a voice?
Well, as a candidate for United States Senator, I'm clear that we have to have two strategies. What is now clear is that the day of reckoning has come. Our people have been saying for years, we're not going to go and vote for a system that does not listen to us. We're not going to turn out and vote for people who don't give a damn about how poor we are. We're not going to go out and vote for people who don't care about how poor we are. We're not going to vote for people who are willing to authorize police brutality. We are not going to participate, and we're not going to vote in a system like that. That's a fair communication. So that's one strategy, is to absolutely abstain from the system, rebel against the system, and call for a revolution, and withhold your vote, withhold the vote until that revolution occurs. That is a valid and reliable strategy. It's just not the only strategy. There are some of us who do understand the system and is able to use timing and data to make a difference. I'm one of those people. I know how to do both strategies. And so I'm willing to work within the system and change the things when there is a time and a place or an opportunity to make change. So in order to do that in America, you have to either be an elected official or be a candidate. And right now I'm a candidate for United States Senator, working inside the system to make those changes.
Okay.
How do you feel that it impacted more? I'm sorry, go ahead, sure.
I have another question. I understand that we was looking back over some stuff and some laws that was written, and some of the laws that were written are very outdated. They pretty much lead to you can kill somebody of color, and it doesn't really matter. All and every time, and we only know about these laws when it tend to be something happening and a black person get killed. We got stupid stuff like stand your grounds, and we got stupid stuff like citizen arrest, and I was afraid for my life at that point in time. Who's going to be prepared to stand up and change some of these things that's written that needs to be changed? Because it's a lot of stuff that's written and it's outdated, and it really is doing us a disservice as a race.
We have to have new leadership. The opportunity to bring new leadership in place is now here. We're clear that the laws on the books, some of us say that the control is still in the hand of the dominant population. They just changed the name from slavery to integration. So nobody's fooled by the change of the name. So just like we didn't want to be slaves, we don't want to be a part of an integrative system that makes laws that can still murder our men, take advantage of our women, and reduce our neighborhood to shambles and not do a thing about it. It is unconscionable to think that a people would want to participate in that system. So we must have new leadership. We can no longer go along to get along. And so the kind of upset that is now prevalent all across the nation will have people come to the table and listen and have a different kind of action. It is sad in the human experience that it takes massive, indignant destruction to have human beings step up and do the right thing.
You know, I don't know. Being a person of color myself, I you know, I'm at a crossroad with, will we ever be able to trust the judicial system? Even if you do you know, get the right people in place. It's kind of hard because we've had the right people in place and they've converted to do what shouldn't have been done. It's like saying we need to replace the whole police force, because the majority of them, are doing what they're doing to our children and our black men and our, it's really distasteful. Um, and the even crazier thing is, you know, like I said, they're rioting in these streets because they don't know what else to do, and nobody is giving us real answers. Nobody is letting us know what the chain of command is. Nobody is letting us know what has to be done to change these laws. And the crazy thing, and no disrespect to you, Al, but people want to be voted in these positions, and they're not standing up in these positions. They kind of yield for their own, I don't know whether it's popularity or I don't know whether it's fear, but when people are put in these positions, they drop the ball. And because the ball is constantly dropped, we're seeing these situations right now. I don't think that it's just, um, I blame everybody. My people, their people, I blame them all. And the reason why is as I stated, you know, these things could have been taken care of by now. We just accepted a system that says, okay, y'all not in slavery anymore, so it's better than being in slavery, so just take what we give y'all. And that's exactly what happened. And the unfortunate thing is now we being murdered because we dropped the ball. We being murdered like we animals out here, you know, and we're not getting any justice for it. And it's good to say what needs to be done, but the real question is when are people going to start doing it? When are people in the positions that can do something about it going to start doing it? Because I'm really tired of hearing about what has to be done and nothing's being done. It's a pointless conversation. It's because we can all see what needs to be done. Who's going to get out here and do it? Because we can't do anything but riot. We can't do anything but march to the street. We can't do anything but make videos and say how upset we are that our children are dying out here and we losing sons and we losing brothers. We can't do anything but that. It's the people in the places that were put in those places and trusted to be in them places job to make sure that these things are being done. And it's not. It's not. Every election we get promise and promise and promise after promise that things are going to be done better. This is what we need to do. And it all sounds good. So we vote the same people in, or we vote different people in on that promise. And all of a sudden these people get in these places and they can't do anything for us. When is that going to change? Because when that changes, because we're not just talking about it, we're actually doing something about it, then something can be done. Then we don't have to riot. Then we don't have to have these conversations. Shows like this are not necessary. You know, planning funerals during a time like this is not necessary. Mothers mourning their children is not necessary. When do we get to that point where it's not just talk? When?
We have to consider that time is now. You know, one of the things I pointed out earlier is it is sad that it takes this kind of massive destruction to bring people to the table that are unwilling to come to the table. So those of us who know that change must come, we must make that change now. It is a clear communication from our people from years. We will not go and vote for a system that takes advantage of us. We now have an opportunity to make a difference. But because we are in a structure that requires human beings to go and vote to change that structure, the way we're going to have to change our own commitment is going to be a challenge. To convince people who have not voted to go and vote is going to be a challenge. That's only going to happen in the midst of massive destructive crisis. So what you will see coming out of this is there will be more people who have not voted to turn out and vote, so that the leadership that gets put in place will be leadership that can represent their voice and their future and make people accountable, because they will be coming from us, the community, rather than the status quo.
I don't know about that, Al. And I'm going to tell you why I don't know about that. Because, you know, I don't think that we had a bigger turnout than when we had Obama in office. A lot of people came and voted. And guess what? These laws are still in place. We had a black president and these laws are still in place. You know, so we've had the opportunity, as you say, over and over again to do something about these situations. And we've had catastrophic situations happen up until this point. This is not the first riot we've had. This is not the first one, because this is not the first murder we've had. This is not the first march we had. This is not the first time we got fed up with this. And what you have to understand is we entrusted voting, like I said, what we thought would be the right person in, and we didn't get anything for that. We didn't get anything. No promises were fulfilled. Our kids are still being murdered in the street. You know what I'm saying? None of that stuff happened. It's been promised over and over again. So here's my thing. Just as easy as you can set up a press conference, because they're setting them up all over the world right now. Just as easy as these mayors are coming out to talk to these towns to try to convince them that it's not a good idea to tear up the city and that they're going to try to do everything that they can in their power to change things. Just as easy as it is to do that, why isn't it just as easy? Why are we not sitting at a round table saying, hey, let's change these laws? Let's change these laws. Let's do that. Nobody has said that yet. Let's put laws in place that's going to protect us, you know, protect us as one. Because guess what? When you give us the choice to either die or go to jail, that's not a fair choice. And that's the only choice the judicial system has given us. And like I said, people have been in place to prevent those things, and nobody has done anything about it. We're not just tired. What you have to understand is we're not just tired of the judicial system. We're tired of the people in the high places too. We're tired of the people that want to be in the places to make a difference and get in those places and don't make a difference. We're tired of all of that. All of that is a problem right now.
Well, what you're pointing to is that we're going to have to deal with, we as in members of the community, we're going to have to deal with that we voted people into office who talk like us, look like us, had our passion, and then they got into office and lied to us. People who look like us, talk like us, got into office and betrayed us. There were laws that could have been passed during the Obama administration because he was a black president. We expected those laws to be changed. There were efforts that we, the activists, feel that he could have done that did not happen. At the level of mayor, city council, county commission, and US Congress, we have people who were activists. Then they got into that office, they changed their mind, they changed their perspective, they lied to us and betrayed us. So that's something that we as a community is going to have to deal with. It is the people who stared us in the face and lied to us.
With
It is disheartening, and it causes us to have massive distrust. So now here we are again. Buildings are being shattered and burnt. Cars are being burnt and turned over. But this is the kind of opportunity that has been given to us by the universe for us to make that change.
Well, I'm just hoping that that change happens because I don't care about burning buildings that have insurance on them that can be rebuilt. I don't care about cars that's burning that have insurance on them that can be replaced. I care about the lives that are being taken in these streets that cannot be given back. That's what I care about. So the unfortunate thing is, you were absolutely right. Who do we trust at this point? Because it doesn't seem like we can trust anybody but ourselves. Right now, we don't feel like we have anybody in our corner. And it
Nobody,
sounds
nobody's coming. Nobody's coming to save us but us. The people who have stared us in our face have lied to us, betrayed us, and turned us in as dogs on the street. So now we have to confront them with everything that we have.
well, I just want to know when it starts.
Well, we are clear that we can all move with the same mind, and we can do that now. But it's going to take a particular kind of leadership. I'm one of the people who are willing to put my career, my passion, and my life on the line to do that.
Well, my question is, I'm beginning to see a pattern in the things that's going on. We have cases where people are killing people, and it take 2 and 3 months to get locked up. And all this stuff is going on. This crazy stuff is going on where people get away with all this stuff, and it's taking time to have anything done. But then we got the cases where you killing somebody black, you trialing and convicting them right there on the street and sentencing them to death. What we going to do about stuff like that? Who's going to change stuff like that from happening when we supposed to be upstanding, innocent to proven guilty, but we got the police able to trial, convict, and sentence you to death right here on the street? Who's changing stuff like that that's going on?
Well, the change can be made, but we have to deal with what's in place to prevent change. What is in place to prevent change is called a system. That system is controlled by something called voting. The way to have the people who are locking up our children and throwing away the damn key, murdering our men, women, and children, the only way in this system to change that is at the ballot box. At the same time, we are clear that we're not going to go to a ballot box for a system that is against us. And so once we go and vote and change the system, the question becomes, how are we going to deal with people who we vote in the office that betray us and lie to us? It is a human experience. It's going to take a particular courage from us that we have not seen in a long, long, long time. That day of reckoning has now come, and I'm encouraging all of us to take on making that change at the ballot box between now and November 3rd.
Okay, we have a question. We have a question from somebody that says, what about, and we all can answer this question because I know I got to answer. What about the elderly who have nowhere to shop over this riot? Who want to be the first one to answer that?
We're going to have to take care of our elderly. We're not going to be able to depend on the government to take care of our elderly. some system, some philanthropic opportunity, we are going to have to organize among ourselves and go take care of our own elderly. There's nobody coming to save us but us.
Well, my answer to that question is I don't really think any elderly person I know is worried about shopping when they know that they live their life and they thought that they got us out of slavery. They thought we got rights. And here you go, your grandkids and great grandkids getting killed in the street. So I think that's somebody who just not really haven't talked to nobody elderly, because every elderly person I know, including my mother-in-law who's 70 something years old, the main concern of hers daily is where's my grandson. So I don't know how many elderly people worrying about where they're gonna shop at when you got people being killed out here in the street, because they seem like everything they did and everything they fought for from us ain't really working now when you got people that can be just killed out there in the street like that by police officers, the people who set forth and supposed to protect us. But anybody else want to answer that?
No, I think y'all did a good job answering. I actually want to address something else.
I'm Shantae. I agree. Like, we're talking about people getting killed on the streets. That might be an elderly person. They don't give a damn about no groceries. You know, they're trying to live. This is a black color. This is a brown conversation. This isn't a young and an old conversation. Like, the elderly don't care about their groceries. They're more resourceful than half of us. They live during a time in which, you know, they've lived through the recession. They've lived through the original civil rights movement. This is nothing for them. This is a cakewalk. Our elderly can make it off $2. We can't.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I'm uncomfortable with voting at this point, and I'm gonna tell you why I'm uncomfortable with voting at this point. Because unless I actually see, the candidates out here, actually having acts or showing acts to validate what they are actually saying they can do for our people, I'm uncomfortable with it, because I feel like if I can't go and look and see that you have done things or you have things in place, because if you don't, I just feel like you're another person that's making promises that are not going to be fulfilled. So if I cannot go and look and say, oh, you know what, and I'm just using you as an example, Al. If I can't go and say, hey, Al Bartel, what's going on with him? He wants to be senator, and they can't say to me, oh yeah, he organized this for the elderly because they didn't want to go out in the shop, so he got people to come together in the community and do this, or oh yeah, he organized things for young black mothers, or he is trying to keep black families together, and yes, he address this, or is trying to put something in place to stop the youth from being murdered. I'm not voting for nobody that hasn't went out there actively and did those things, and can validate it with the proof, of doing those things. Because other than that, we're just taking the word, and the problem is we've been taking the word from people for a very, very long time. It's just crazy to me how all this stuff is going on, and everybody is saying vote, 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 vote. Voting's going to come. What are we going to do right now? What are we going to do? Because we have to do something.
Well, your assessment is accurate and reliable, and it makes sense to be able to find out what a person has done, to ask and see what have they done for neighborhood leaders, community leaders, faith leaders, and small business leaders. What have they done for urban, suburban, and rural communities? What have they done? So it would be useful for us to have more activists to think like you think, and not just accept the same old okie doke words that somebody's passing down the pike just because they want to be elected.
Well, my problem is when you got these two choices, and I'm gonna be very honest with what I've been seeing, because I've been going looking at ballots and be like, this is bad, and this is worse bad. So would I pick the worst bad, the bad, or somebody I just don't know and ain't heard nothing bad about? The choices on the ballot is my problem. I don't really see good choices. I think the whole the problem with going out to vote is we don't see nothing worth voting for. I think that's a bigger problem than anything else we got. We either got your worst or we got worse than somebody's worst. That's about how the choices look when we're looking at the ballots now.
Well, your assessment is accurate. Just like people are not going to vote for a system that murders our men, women, and children, that takes our communities and leaves them in shambles, that disrespects our elders, that withholds health care from us, that withhold the loans that it takes to and the financing for our small businesses to be in place. Just like nobody's going to go vote inside of that, nobody's going to run for a candidate inside of that. And so you got the bad and the worst bad who's running for office, people who want to hustle and have a game and have an agenda. So your assessment is accurate about when you look at the people who are running, nobody's going to trust anything like that. And so what it's going to take from those of us who see that is a courage and an intense and an intention that is damn near unprecedented. It is going to be something that we have not seen in a long time to convince someone who has ethics, to convince someone who has integrity, to convince someone who actually cares about people, to convince that kind of person to run in today's politics is going to take something. So you're right, my sister. We have our work cut out for us. And the situation that's in place now has everybody paying attention in ways that they have not paid attention to before. It would be useful for us to use this to our advantage and have people that we know we can trust to make a difference run for office, and have people that we know that they go out and vote, it can make a difference in their county, in their city, and in their town.
Well, my problem is I have heard people say that this has been the best person or this is going to be the best person, and everybody start off good. So who we know that's going to stay genuine to what they say when they get in these chairs? Because that's what's been happening. We hear all the good stuff. I have joked with my friends and tell them all the time. We end up getting these sweet talking politicians. They worse than men trying to date us. We end up getting these sweet talking politicians that tell you all the lies you want to hear. And the minute their name go up and they get where they're supposed to be, they forget about everything they done tell you. So how do we decipher who's going to really be the people that's going to stick to the things that they're telling us? Because that's the part I'm tired of.
Yeah, you're right. Out of every 25 to 30 people that run for office, you may find one who's going to keep their word. And that's what we have to confront. The other 29 is going to lie to us. They're going to take our money and take bribes. They're going to set up conversation for their own agenda. They're going to withhold information. They're going to partner up with the enemy and block us. They're going to withhold power and not share power. For every 30 people that are running, maybe one is willing to have that kind of integrity. And that is what we are confronting. It's going to take a particular kind of leadership to turn that around. And it's going to look like the people that we see in the mirror every day with our name tag on.
Well, let me ask Al. What have you done, or what have you done, and what are you doing on the political end that will ensure that these things actually happen?
I started out my activist career as a person who was taking on gang violence in Washington, D.C., and began to consider that young men at that time were speaking from the heart. And it was the first time that they had ever been heard by an adult male. And I took that same principle and expanded it to the level of community. So what I do is I work with neighborhood leaders and train leaders on how to communicate and listen rather than just talk. I work with neighborhood leaders and train them on how to tell the difference between information and data. I work with faith leaders and have them be able to tell the difference between judgment and vengeance and forgiveness and grace. And then I work with small business leaders to have them tell the difference between making money and having a business. So for years, I convened what's called roundtable discussions, development sessions, summits, and conferences to communicate to people the exact same thing that I've been communicating on this call. So I go out and do this as a way of life and not just professional.
My and another question I have is how many of these people that we supposed to be voting for are actually out in the street having these conversations with us? How many people are really out here listening to us and caring about what we feel on the street? I think that's the problem. I think mostly everybody's losing touch with the people. Nobody's really out in the street trying to hear what we have to say. I think they need to not only just be visiting the streets when you want our vote. I think they need to be more attentive to what we have to say. But only time we see politicians is when it's time to vote. I think that's another problem. Nobody's out having the conversations that need to be had with the people.
The majority of people in the political arena are what's called professional politicians. They don't care about your condition, your state of mind, and certainly don't care about your heart. They're into politics because politics is a business. Very rarely can you meet someone who's willing to go with you and walk down your street, walk through your neighborhood, come to your meeting and hear what you have to say, and then go back and communicate that to somebody else. And so I'm interested in making sure that the communication that I'm in touch with, that I share it. And I keep being in touch. But very rare will you find a politician of today's time who's doing it because it's a way of life. Most politicians are doing it because it's a business. It takes the kinds of massive upset like we've seen over the last 3 days to bring them back to the table, to bring them back to the community, to bring them back to the neighborhood, to bring them back to the small businesses and have another chance of making a difference.
Al, very quickly, would you mind? I know that this sounds like a very naive question, but would you mind explaining the difference between political offices? Sometimes I feel as if we take it for granted that all of us understand what a senator is and what their accountabilities and responsibilities are. But could you explain to us the difference between a city councilman, a commissioner, someone running for Senate, and someone running for U.S. House of Representatives?
Sure. Throughout history, the greater good of people have said, if you can give us some of your resources, we can manage stuff for the greater good. If you give us some of your resources, we can take care of the sick. We can protect the weak. We can ensure that commerce moves. Those are called taxes. In the world, the human beings say, if I'm going to give you my taxes so that you can sustain our economies and our government, then I want to have a say so. So governments are set up to have every citizen have a say so. At the level of a town, you have a town council. You have people who make the laws, then you have people who implement the laws, and then you have people who judge the laws. So we have three branches of government: the judicial branch, which is the courts, the executive branch, which is mayors, governments, presidents, and departments. Then you have the legislative branch, which is councils and members of legislature. So the first level is a town or a city. The legislative branch of a city are called city councils. The management branch of a city is called mayors and department heads. And the other branch is called judges. All cities are located in what's called a county. In Georgia, you have 159 counties. The legislative branch of a county is called county commissioners. The executive branch are county managers and department heads. And then you have judges. Then you go to the level of state. You don't have council, you don't have county commissioners, you have what's called representatives. You have two kinds of representatives. You have representatives that are close to the common everyday people, and you have representatives that are accountable for the all of it. The representatives are called state representatives. The people who are accountable for the all of it are called state senators. In Georgia, we have 180 state representatives, and we have 56 state senators. We have the exact same thing at the national level. The representatives are called U.S. congressmen and women, and the senators are called U.S. senators. In the United States, we have 50 states. Each one of them have so many congressmen and women, depending on the population. Georgia has 14. California has almost 100. In Washington, D.C., you have 435 U.S. congressmen and women, and you have 100 United States senators. Every state has 2 United States senators. They have staggered terms, 6 years. So what's supposed to happen is this year, United States Senator David Perdue is up for election. 2 years from now, in 2022, United States Senator Johnny Isakson would be up for election. But he had health problems, so we're having a special election for him this year also. So I'm running for that special election as a United States Senator to be one of 2 senators from Georgia and one of 100 senators in Washington, D.C.
Thank you for that, Al. That was a very thorough explanation. And I just want to say thank you for being open and inviting and allowing us to call you by your first name instead of it being formal. And I like that because you're out in the community, you're visible, and you're doing things to impact the community. And it gets a little weird sometimes. Independent candidate for U.S. Senate, candidate Bartell, compared to Al. What can we do to make a difference in this conversation? So thank you for that.
You are so welcome, and I look forward to more opportunities to make a difference in these kind of platforms.
Sharika, Tanisha.
Well, I just want to thank you for taking the time out to give us some knowledge on things that we might not have known, and also to let us, give our audience some knowledge on maybe how these votes work and what we need to do to make sure that we're getting the right people in place. I'm not as hopeful, but all I can say is I wish for better, and I'm praying for better.
Wonderful.
Tanisha, anything?
I'm just hoping that things change and things change soon. Al, your presence was definitely appreciated. Thank you for the insight, and it's good to know that you are a candidate who is actually out here um, trying to make a difference, because that says a lot. Um, and other than that, all we can do is pray that we get the right people in place, um, so things that are going on can stop, and protests won't be necessary, and these killings will stop, and we will be looked at, like people, and actually have justice for a change, and that justice will be equal to everybody else. So that's it.
Thank you for your communication, my sister. I appreciate it.
The last thing that I'll say is, well, one, Al, I'd like you to chime in and let us know what will we need to do, how could we find you on our voter ballots. But what I'll say about Al, I have a personal friendship with Al. I've known Al for over 12 years now. My children know him, my mother knows him, and Al advocates for everyone, whether you're black, white, pink, purple, low on the socioeconomic status, white, Asian, high on the socioeconomic status. But the thing that impacts elections a lot of time, and people don't realize this, is the ability to fundraise. And in fundraising, right now you're going up against people who are, could you discuss your two opponents and who you are as it compares to the Republicans and the Democrats, and just have an open discussion about that for a brief, maybe 2 minutes, please?
Sure. The current two United States senators, when Senator Johnny Isakson had health problems and had to resign last year, the governor appointed Senator Kelly Loeffler, who is a multimillionaire, some say a billionaire. Her and her husband own the New York Stock Exchange framework, and they are extremely wealthy and have the capacity to raise a lot of money as a sitting U.S. Republican senator. One of the Republican challengers is a congressman named Doug Collins out of East Georgia, has the backing of the President of the United States and a major multi-billion-dollar fundraising network in place. And then there are a couple of other Republicans running and some more Democrats, but nobody has that kind of fundraising capability. And it seems as if the Democratic Party is not sure whether they're going to fully fund or try to get behind a particular Democrat here in Georgia. But then there's me, I'm running as an independent candidate. That puts me at a severe disadvantage for fundraising. So I have to come up with creative ways to get my message out. So rather than raising $250,000 per month to buy media, it's useful for me to try and reach 250,000 people per month or every 2 months on frameworks like this one. So I'm challenged by the undauntable amount of money that it takes to purchase media in the multi-million-dollar media market. I am challenged by that, and I'm at a disadvantage. So I have to use creative methods of being in communication with committed stakeholders in order to get my message out. It is a challenge that I'm willing to take, embrace, and move forward with, regardless of how unsurmountable it seems.
And I'm bringing it up. The reason why I bring that up is with me coming with a media background, I can recall sitting down with someone just recently, and they represented a small town or small area in Northwest Atlanta. And they said, every time I do media, it never works for me. I said, what'd you do? He said, I did a national ad campaign. I said, why haven't you worked with someone local? Why would I work with someone local? These people know what they're doing. I said, are you Budweiser? Are you Chevy? He was like, no. But why would I do that? I said, it takes local people to know about local businesses. So sometimes when we get into the national buys and the people who are only looking at national, it feels as if for us smaller people on the lower end of the totem pole to actually have our voices heard and expressed, it sometimes takes people who are being willing to be hands-on as local advocates, friends, and community leaders to actually have those voices heard. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being open-minded and open to freely expressing yourself during us asking you different questions about different areas of your life. Sharika, Tanisha, do either of you have any additional questions for the candidate Al Bartel?
I just want to thank him because we don't get many people that's willing to come and talk to the little people. So I just want to thank him.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
Again, your presence is definitely appreciated.
You're absolutely welcome, my sister.
Candidate Bartel, do you have any parting words?
Well, the parting words is please continue this kind of dialogue, share it with others, and encourage others to produce this kind of dialogue so the message can be continuous, can be a real message for real people. And those are my closing remarks.
Thank you, everyone, for chiming in and for tuning in to Getting to Know America. I am Shantae McLaughlin. We have Sharika Dash, we have Tanisha, and we have Al Bartel. Thank you.